Dirty Bird Nation, it's time for another episode of the Dirty Bird Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harrison, and man, what a win on Sunday. The Atlanta Falcons got it done 34-27 over the Washington Commanders, and this game was a must-win. It was an absolute must-win heading into the bye week next week, especially because they were coming off an ugly loss to the Carolina Panthers on the previous Sunday. But all around, fantastic performance from the Atlanta Falcons. You really can't ask much more, especially from the offense. But on today's episode, we're going to be getting into some first reactions, kind of going by the numbers, taking a look at some player stats and analytics. We're going to take a look at the offense. We're going to take a look at the defense. We're going to take a look at what went right, also what went wrong, and we'll kind of just recap everything before we head into this bye week in week 5. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So obviously, amazing game. I was there, as I will be at every Falcons home game, plus some road games this season. But 34-27 victory over Washington. Now let's go ahead and take a look at it by the numbers. So first downs, Falcons dominated 24-17. Rushing yards, Falcons 128, Washington 147. Passing yards, Falcons 307, Washington 147 for the total yards. 294 for Washington, and 435 for the Atlanta Falcons. So absolutely dominant, even on the stat sheet. Of course, the Falcons did lead this game at one point 31-16, and they were dominant. I know it's a 7-point final score, but the Falcons really did dominate this game from start to finish, and there were times that it looked like the Commanders might slightly make a comeback, but the Falcons really did keep their foot on the gas all game long, and the real key was third downs. If you listened to my podcast on the look ahead to this game last week, you'll know that I emphasized third down efficiency as one of my key points, as Washington was the number 1 team defending on third down. And the Falcons went 6 of 12. So that was better than their usual average of 39.5% on third down. So at 500, we'll take that all day long. Obviously, they could have been a little bit better on some third downs, especially near the goal line, especially on that last drive. But also, on the flip side of things, Washington was only 1 of 8 on third down. Shout out to the defense, man. That has been arguably the best factor of the team this entire season is the defense, which we don't really get to say that too much, but the defense has been very, very good, and they demonstrated that again against Washington. Yes, they did give up 27 points, but once again, they had to work with a couple of short fields, and they held their own for the most part. But let's take a look at some advanced stats real quick as I move over to my handy-dandy computer here. But also time of possession, man. Falcons, 34 minutes and 15 seconds. Commanders, 25 minutes and 45 seconds. Falcons dominated the time of possession and overall completely controlled this game. Obviously, the defense is going to have to limit the big plays, and the special teams is going to have to limit the big returns, which we did see Luke McCaffrey break off for a big return there. But overall, you can't complain. This is something that we've been waiting for. We have been waiting for this offense to pop off and show us that, hey, we're talented and can perform to high standards. And putting up 34 points was a very, very nice bounce back. And speaking of that offense, let's go ahead and take a look at some individual stats. Michael Penix Jr. was 20 of 26, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And yeah, that wasn't the best interception. He was trying to hit, I forget who it was, but it was on that curl route, and then he just simply did not see the underneath defender, which it is what it is. You're going to have to live with those occasionally, but overall, fantastic performance from Michael Penix Jr. Bijan Robinson, 17 rushes for 75 yards and a touchdown. Also, 4 receptions for 106 yards. Tyler Algier, 16 rushing attempts for 51 yards and a touchdown. Drake London, 8 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. And of course, we can't forget Kyle Pitts, 5 receptions, 70 yards and a touchdown. So basically every key player on this offense was getting involved on Sunday, and that's what we've been waiting to see from a Zach Robinson offense, from this Falcons offense. We've been waiting for specifically those 5 guys to put up really good numbers, and thankfully they delivered. Zach Robinson moving to the sidelines did, in fact, make a difference. So he's never allowed to go back to the booth, and I think we will all riot if we see Zach Robinson going back to the booth. But anyways, defensively, couple of standouts. Jesse Bates had 4 tackles with 3 assisted tackles. Leonard Floyd, 1 tackle, 3 assisted, and half a sack. Xavier Watts, 2 tackles, 3 assisted tackles, and 1 interception. That rookie has been balling. Terry has really nailed this draft class. All of the rookies have been really good. And our spotlight player on defense this week is going to be Caden Ellis. He had 3 tackles, 2 assisted tackles, and half a sack. And the reason that Caden Ellis is the spotlight player this week is because he is the only player in the NFL since the start of the 2024 season with at least 170 tackles and at least 6 sacks. So shout out Caden Ellis, man. Caden Ellis just shows up every week and is a dog. He can ball, and he proves it week in and week out. But let's go ahead and transition into what we're going to talk about in this next segment, and that's what went right. And it's a lot, thankfully. It's better to have more than what went wrong, which I will also discuss. But let's go ahead and start it out with the offense. Like I just mentioned, the offense, 4 touchdowns, 2 field goals, much needed, and they delivered. They 100% delivered. Could have been 5 touchdowns and only 1 field goal, but hey, we live and we take the victory. So, but also shout out to John Parker Romo. He bounced back, made both of his field goals, 2 for 2, and then went 4 for 4 on PATs. So hopefully that's going to be the new trend, the new standard. Last week at Carolina was tough, not going to lie, 0 for 2, missing those 2 field goals. Maybe he just struggles with outdoors. I know obviously kickers tend to struggle more outdoors than indoors, but I really hope that this is the John Parker Romo we're going to be seeing for the rest of the season moving forward. And then going back to Zach Robinson, moving down to the sidelines, he had a quote to Bijan Robinson at halftime of the Washington game saying, "I should have always been on the sidelines." Yeah, you think, buddy? I mean, you look at that offense and what they did against Washington compared to any game, Tampa, Minnesota, Carolina, yeah, you're staying on the sideline to call plays. Let's just say that. Offense looked very explosive. They were able to move the ball up and down the field. It was really great to watch. I'm not going to lie. It was a very refreshing game to watch your team lead from start to finish. And essentially, they didn't really let Washington have the ball with a chance to tie hardly at all that entire game. So it felt nice to stay ahead, and that's the new standard for the offense. There's no reason this offense can't do this every single week. But speaking of 2 stars, Drake London and Bijan Robinson became the first wide receiver running back duo in the NFL to have at least 100 receiving yards since Chris Godwin and Jacquizz Rodgers did in Week 10 of 2018. Shout out Jacquizz Rodgers, but that's a great accomplishment, man. Drake London and Bijan Robinson, anytime both those guys are having over 100 receiving yards, it's a recipe for a victory. Funny enough, the Buccaneers did lose that game, so at least the Falcons know how to win when their 2 stars at one running back and wide receiver get over 100 yards, but they're just ballers, and I'm finally glad that Zach Robinson is feeding these guys. And speaking of London and Robinson, they were also the first Falcons wide receiver running back duo to have at least 100 receiving yards since Alfred Jenkins and William Andrews did back in Week 11 of 1981. So it's been a very long time since the Falcons have seen a dynamic running back who can catch the ball and also have a wide receiver who can catch the ball and put up 100 yards in the same game, that is. But I'm just so glad that the stars are clicking because we've waited long enough. And by long enough, I mean 4 weeks, Week 4 of the NFL season. But also, moving on to some more things that went right, quarterback pressure. I mentioned in the last episode that the Falcons have to get after Marcus Mariota, and for the most part, they did. They sacked Marcus Mariota twice, And they have now recorded 10 sacks through 4 games this season, which is the most through 4 games since 2017, which also happens to be the last year the Falcons made the playoffs. Not insinuating anything, but just pointing out facts. So the defense has been amazing. It's been really good to watch. It's very refreshing to see the D-line get after the quarterback, because that is something us Falcons fans have not seen in a long time. But 10 sacks through 4 games, first time since 2017. We're chilling. Got to keep applying that pressure. Got to keep getting after the quarterback. Can't sit back. Arguably the best quarterback that they will face all season long. Not even arguably, the best quarterback they will face all season long after the bye week in week 6 when they host the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. Should be a super fun, super exciting game. I'm praying for a victory, but we'll get into the Buffalo Bills game in the next episode. I'll give a breakdown, but so many positives, I will say. I could go on and on and on, but overall, offense, defense, even special teams for the most part looked great. So with that being said, let's take a look at what went wrong. Tongue twister, but really the only thing I got for the most part is injuries. Unfortunately, Natron Brooks was out with a concussion after that really good kickoff return, and he did not return to the game. Let's just hope that he can pass concussion protocol and be fully healthy for the Bills game in week 6. Felipe Franks had an arm injury and was questionable to return. However, he did return to the game, and he looks perfectly fine. And then another notable big injury, Darnell Mooney was ruled out in the 3rd quarter with a hamstring injury. So that one is arguably going to be the biggest one. I know they still had very good offensive success without Mooney, but the Falcons could really use him for week 6 against Buffalo. And normally I'm not a fan of the week 5 bye week, but it does give guys a chance to get healthy, reset, and just focus on a huge next 2 weeks when they have to play the Buffalo Bills and San Francisco 49ers. Both games in prime time, by the way. So we're hitting this stretch of the schedule where it's time to go. It's time to start winning some games. 2-2, bye week, reset, reload. Let's do it. I would honestly say the only other thing that went wrong was just the big plays, and that's kind of been the Falcons' kryptonite as a team for the past, I don't know, ever, but you have to limit the big plays. Luke McCaffrey had that big kick return to the Atlanta 41-yard line after the Falcons took a 17-7 lead in the 2nd quarter, so obviously you go up by 10, you want to pin them deep and force a 3-and-out and not give Washington a chance to kind of jump right back into it. And of course, what do the Falcons do? Boom, kickoff return, they're already in Falcons territory. So that sucks, and that has to be limited. The Falcons special teams has been hit or miss so far this year, and thank God they did have a lead this entire game, so it wasn't the end of the world, but still got to limit those big plays, especially on special teams. Taking a look at another big play was the 24-yard touchdown pass that Marcus Mariota threw to Deebo Samuel with 8:48 to go in the 4th quarter. And that was on 4th down. So my question is, with it being, I think, 4th and 3, what were we doing? Like, no safety over the top? Like, that I feel like should have been prevented. If you give up a quick screen or a slant or even a run, that can be talked about, that can be discussed or whatever, but you should not be getting burnt over the top on a 4th down throw to the end zone from 24 yards out, especially with it being Marcus Mariota. It was a good throw, it was a good catch, yeah, whatever. But that throw should not even have been made, because Xavier Watts or Jesse, someone should have been over the top on that throw. I'm not a big fan of man-on-man coverage, especially with a bigger, semi-faster guy like Deebo Samuel. But hey, it ended up not killing the Falcons. Of course, they did add the 2-point conversion on after that, but the Falcons stood tall. I will say there's a lot of things that did impress me, and we're kind of going back to what went right. I think a lot of Falcons fans would agree with me on this, but when the Commanders did take that touchdown and 2-point conversion to cut the lead to 31-24, I think the old Falcons team would have immediately gone 3-and-out or maybe stalled the drive at midfield and then punted the ball to Washington to give Washington a chance to go tie or win the game. So it was extremely refreshing to see this year's Falcons team constantly convert on third down, move the ball down the field, and at the 2-minute mark, kick the field goal to go up by 10 points, making it a 2-score game. Personally, on the 3rd-and-goal call, I would not have ran it to Tyler Algier. I would have called a passing play. I know they wanted to get it to the 2-minute warning, but Washington didn't have any timeouts. And you're already up 7. You're on the goal line. The clock's stopping at the 2-minute warning. Even if the clock stops on an incomplete pass, and you haven't gotten to the 2-minute warning yet, the field goal will take the clock down to the 2-minute warning. So I would have loved to see a little bit more aggressive play calling from Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris at the end of the game there on the goal line. I get you don't want to risk the interception, the tipped pass, the, bad snap and shotgun or something. I get it. I felt like running the ball from 3rd-and-goal on like the 7-yard line was kind of just all right, let's just run it, get it to the 2-minute warning, then kick the field goal. Of course, it didn't end up mattering that they only got the field goal there because they still ended up winning by 7 points. Washington tacked on that field goal with a chance to get an onside kick, which thankfully the Falcons learned how to recover onside kicks. But that's the only real, complaint I would have. I love to be aggressive in those situations. You don't want to force anything, but I would have loved at least a play-action rollout with Penix on that 3rd-and-goal at the 2-minute mark at the end of the game. But hey, we love just getting points on the board in that situation because, like I said, old Falcons would have 100% given the ball to Washington with a chance to win or tie. But I'm riding the wave this week. It's been a fantastic week. Great win. Vibes are high. We got the bye week coming up, so I'm going to be on my couch watching Red Zone all day on Sunday. But before I get out of here on this brief recap of this Falcons-Commanders game, I got to go ahead and lock in my Thursday night football pick between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. So, with that being said, battle of 2 3-1 teams, I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams at home over the San Francisco 49ers, 27-19. So there you have it. That's my Thursday night football pick, and I'll be releasing another episode either on Friday or Saturday, kind of just a look ahead of the Week 5 games. I know the Falcons are not involved, but of course, I'll also do a little bit of a look ahead to the Buffalo Monday night football game in Atlanta for Week 6. But let me know your thoughts on the game. I thought it was good, great even. Anytime the offense can score 34, I'm never going to complain. I hope they can keep it rolling into Buffalo. But go ahead and drop your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns. Drop them in the comments of wherever you're seeing this or listening to this. And rise up. Great win. And looking to ride that momentum into Week 6 against Buffalo. So see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Dirty Bird Talk. And I'm Harrison. Rise up.